So this is part 2 of how not to slump in a chair. So let's discuss base of support a little bit. What does base of support mean? It's the part of the ground that you're using to support yourself. If I'm doing a plank, which I'm not even going to attempt, but let's say I'm doing a side plank, then it's my foot and my arm that's supporting me, and my shoulder and my hip. It's where I receive the ground. So what do I mean by that? We all know that there's a gravitational force that keeps us on this earth, and the gravitational force is the reason that we evolved bones. If we were still aquatic creatures, we would not need our bones because the gravity is different when you're in the water than you're on the land. But since we evolved to be land creatures and to be bipeds, we developed long bones so that we could withstand the force of gravity and not be a puddle on the ground. And the interesting thing about gravity is that there's another component to gravity that's called ground force or ground reaction force. It's a very simple concept. It's like the concept of a diving board. When you push down into something, it pushes back up with exactly the same amount of force as your weight generates. That's how we stand up. And the difference between we humans and quadrupeds that have 4 points of support is a big deal, because we go from having 4 points of support, I'm gonna scoot back here, so that we have more options, more possibilities for how we can move ourselves. We have the power of our hamstrings to really propel us forwards. We have the strength of our psoas to flex our hips and the strength of our glutes to extend our hips. When we come up here, suddenly, I hope you can see my head, suddenly our base of support narrows. So we have this long, tall pole and these 2 tiny bases of support. So the balance on our feet becomes very important to our ability to stand up, to our ability to balance, to our ability to manage uneven surface, to move forward into the world, to get support from gravity that's underneath us. And if I am really lined up in gravity, meaning I'm using my feet to sense the ground and feeling myself, my ankles above my feet. Go ahead and stand up and do this. Stand up, find your feet, step a little right and left. Your feet should be about hip width apart, not out like this and not like this, but somewhere comfortable for you where there's some space between them. And just sense the weight through your feet. Sense the ankles above your feet. Sense the knees above your ankles. You may be noticing right and left differences already. That's totally fine. We're all asymmetrical. The hips over the knees. The pelvis over the hip joints. Now, what's the rib cage doing over the pelvis? Is it forward of the pelvis, or is it backward of the pelvis? Is it right of the pelvis? Is it left of the pelvis? How can the rib cage hover over the pelvis? The shoulders resting on the rib cage, the neck, and the skull. So now as you sense yourself, do you feel pulled down by gravity? Or do you feel like you're fighting gravity to stand up? Or do you have a sense of ease because you can feel the ground coming up and through you? So this principle also applies to sitting. When I sit, my base of support changes. I have 4 points again. I have 2 feet, which provide me ground force up into my hip joints. And then I have the sits bones that provide me support up and through my spine. So if you sit back in a chair, let's say I'm gonna do my best posture in this chair. Well, look at how far back my shoulders are from my hip joint. My shoulders are not supported at all right now. And they're behind me resting on the chair, which means I have no support from the ground. And eventually I'm gonna slump further and further and further because nothing is coming up through me. It's all going down, down, down like a waterfall. And I could also try to have really good posture and sit up straight, which lots of people try to do by arching their back and creating a ton of tension in their back, which is going to fatigue them and tire them. And then we all have the habit of looking into the screen, which causes us to start to crane our head forward because we've got some eye strain going on. And then to bring our shoulders forward and to collapse our chest, and there we are back behind ourselves again. It cannot be easy for me to support myself in gravity if I don't have my segments one on top of each other. Think about a long telephoto lens. All of those apertures have to line up. The aperture of my skull, the aperture of my neck, the aperture of my rib cage, of my pelvic bowl, of my thighs, of my knees, of my calves, of my ankles, of my feet. So when you sit, if you are behind your sits bones, you're lost. If you are in front of your sits bones, you're in way too much tension. And so when you start to find yourself losing a sense of posture, it's totally okay to sit back for a minute and just slump. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But then you can come back, and number one, you want to be on the front of the chair so that you can feel the support through your sits bones, and you rock side to side a little bit. You get your feet in connection with the ground. You start to receive the support that is available to you at every moment, 24/7. The ground is there to support you. That's not a new age aphorism. That is a biological fact. Biology and physics, that's what the Feldenkrais method is about. All organisms, whether they're a protozoa or a giraffe, are supported by gravity. So when you can start to harness that in a way where you're just available to the support that's there for you, not only does your standing become easier, not only does your sitting become easier, but you start to problem solve in different ways, because as soon as a problem starts, you're already looking for, where can I get support here? Yes, I have a flat tire, but what do I have? Do I have a phone? Do I have a jack? Do I have a spare? How close am I to the freeway exit? All that kind of stuff. Problems become easier to solve when we find support. And being a biped, standing on two tiny feet on this tall, tall pole becomes easier. Sitting and standing when we find support. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.